Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Wednesday morning. It's now the 19th day of November, 2025, and this is the morning briefing. Looking out the window from the home weather office this morning, it's kind of overcast. Yeah, I got some kind of mid-level clouds, low to mid-level clouds out there. There looks as though there may be a few breaks in there. Nothing in the way of rain, but it does look kind of overcast and another cool morning. And even though we do have cloud cover in the area today will be a dry day. We'll be looking at the next chance of rain and Sierra snow in just a second, and that's going to be coming in during the day tomorrow. It does look a little bit wetter, at least in some of the models, that it did yesterday, but still nothing that at least I would call a storm, if you will. It's just going to be kind of something passing by that will bring us some rain, but not the amounts of rain that we saw last time. Show you what's happening today. We have that area of moisture down to the south, so here's the low spinning around down here, and then you can see the moisture now streaming into Arizona and on up into Utah. And then behind it, this is the cloud cover that we have. Nothing in the way of rain here, and then this is our next weather maker out in here. Behind it, there is some cold air. Not as cold as last time, but still there will be some colder air coming in, and it's that contrast that'll help produce some rain. Let's talk a little bit about the rain that we have seen. So let's take a look at how this month has gone, and this is at Executive Airport. This line is the overnight lows, and these are the daytime highs. We had that stretch of warmer weather on the 9th and 10th hitting the upper 70s, and then after that, by the 12th, we were in the upper 60s, and then all the way down to the 17th, upper 50s for highs. So we really have turned the page here, and you can see that graphically here. These are the temperature graphs for the days, and as you can see, those are just trending lower. And of course, rain. That's the thing I really wanted to talk about here is the rain. Now, again, this is Executive Airport in Sacramento. I know for those of you in the foothills and even in other parts of the valley, you've seen more. Some of you have probably seen less. We had that half an inch of rain on the 5th, then the 143 on the 13th, and then 22, then 94. So the total for this month right now is 3.07, and some have been saying, wow, this has to be a really wet November. Well, it certainly is a wet November, which is nice, but let's take a look at just where it ranks. So this is from the Climate Book of Sacramento. Now, I just showed you Executive Airport. These numbers are for downtown Sacramento. So while they may not exactly be alike, you can get the idea that we're nowhere near making the top 5. So these are the top 5 wettest Novembers for downtown Sacramento. Back in 1885, doing 11.34. 1970, 7.44. And number 5 on the list is 669. And yeah, right now we're at 307. So we're not even going to make the top 5 in terms of wettest Novembers, even though we'll see a little bit of rain during the day tomorrow. So some have asked, well, 3 inches of rain for Sacramento in the month of November, that's good. It is. It's great. It's nice. There are all sorts of great benefits to getting that. But what does that mean for the year ahead? Well, we can look at that. Let's just base it on these top 5 here. So let's look at 1885, and that's also here in the Climate Book. So 1885. Here's 1885. There's the 11.34. And so going across this line, for some reason, doesn't want to grab all of that. So December was pretty good, over 5 inches of rain, did almost 8 in January. February, we had a lull, and then the rest of the year was pretty good, 32.27. So this year, that was a really good year. Probably had some flooding, so it probably wasn't that great. Since we're in the areas, let's look at 1864. 1864 is right here, 672. Then we had a good December. January is pretty good. February, again, a lull. And then the rest of the year just kind of tapered off, and the year ended pretty close to average. That's interesting. All right, let's just take a look at another. We have look at 70 and 73. So those are down here. So 1970, 774. Then December was pretty average. Oh, January wasn't good. February wasn't good. March was pretty close to average. The year ended up below average. And the other year was 73. December was okay. January was okay. February, not so right. So both of those years ended up kind of just so-so after really good Decembers. So Novembers rather. So yeah, people ask all the time, and it doesn't even matter what the season is. People ask, oh, if it was a hot summer, what does that mean for the fall and winter? There really isn't much correlation you can do between one season and the next, or even 1 month and the rest of the season. So what we can do is just say, well, we're off to a good start and we just have to keep it going. And what we really need right now is some really good snow. But the other thing that I'll show you tell you is that, and we saw it in a couple of examples there, is what we see almost every year. And it doesn't matter if it ends up being a really wet year or dry year, is that somewhere, probably in January or February, there'll be a 4, maybe 5 week period where we see almost no rain at all. So all of a sudden the pattern changes and the big ridge comes in. We probably get some valley fog, and we just kind of go week after week after week with no rain, or maybe just a couple of 1/100ths from a passing weather system. So don't be surprised if that happens. It happens almost every year. We get these 4-week lulls. Sometimes they go out to 6 weeks, and you just kind of wait for it to break. And like I said, you saw that in a couple of those years where December, January were great, and all of a sudden February almost had nothing. So don't be surprised if that happens again in a year like this. But wet November, it's nice, but it doesn't really mean much for the rest of the year ahead. Might be good, might be so-so. Let's look at what's going to happen here. Here's that low that I showed you on the satellite. Little ridge, and then here comes the next weather system, kind of digging to the south again. And that's going to be one of the keys here, is digging to the south and lingering into Southern California during the day on Friday. This is Friday morning, but Northern California into that north flow. So Friday looks dry, and then the weekend looks dry. And going into next week, this should be up to next Friday. We'll see what happens with this system that may come in on Friday or Friday night of next week. We'll see what happens with that. So let's get to more of the details. Let's go to the HRRR and see when this next rain is going to start. Looking at the 12Z run of the HRRR. All right, so this is at 8 o'clock tonight. We do have rain on the coast. We don't have any rain in the valley or the foothills, but certainly for areas, Mendocino County, Humboldt County, Del Norte County, we will see some rain shortly after sunset tonight. Into Sacramento, this is at midnight, getting some rain, as well as into Chico. Now let's go to, let's say, 7 in the morning. 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Some snow in the Sierra. It doesn't look like a ton, but maybe enough for chain controls tomorrow morning. Light rain in the valley, steadier rain in the foothills. So for those of you in Grass Valley and Auburn and Placerville and Jackson and Sonora, you're going to wake up to rain tomorrow morning. But we're not talking about downpours. We're just talking about a steady rain. We're probably going to see, tenths of an inch of rain out of this. Then there's going to be a little bit of a break here. But this, remember I showed you that low kind of cuts off and digs? Well, that's what this model is now showing, that the low just kind of digs, and that kind of stalls the rain here on the west slope that the models were not showing yesterday. Now we're into Thursday night. Now we're into the day Friday. I'll go to Friday morning. And Northern California is dry. There will continue to be some precipitation in Southern California during the day on Friday, but nothing for Northern California. And total rain looks a little bit wetter than it did yesterday from the HRRR. Maybe as much as a half an inch. I think maybe a quarter would be closer. And then there'll be some foothill spots that see more than that. And, let's take a look at snow. Snow level, this is a little bit lower. We could see a dusting of snow down to 5,000 and, 5-6 inches of snow up on the summit. Certainly enough for chain controls, certainly more, let's say, in the high country of Yosemite, Tuolumne Meadows, that sort of thing. All right, let's go back to precip. And let's go to the NAM. Okay, so the NAM is going to look similar in terms of timing. This is tonight around 10 o'clock, rain on the north coast. Nice to see the models agree on timing. And then this is the early morning. This is 4 o'clock, and this is 7 o'clock in the morning, and then 10 o'clock. This one shows the rain ending a little bit faster. Some snow lingering into the Sierra into the late afternoon and early evening, but leaving the valley dry. And here too, Friday is dry in Northern California, rain in Southern California into the day on Saturday, and then even Saturday, all of that dries out. The total rain from this model is a little bit lower than the HRRR was, somewhere around 1/4 of an inch to maybe 1/2 an inch. But similar looking. And again, I think for the valley, 1/4 of an inch. So that's why I'm saying, this isn't like it's going to be a big storm. It's just going to be, some light rain passing by. Let's go farther out in time. And for that, let's go to the GFS. Because as I've been mentioning the last couple of days, want to keep an eye on Thanksgiving week. I'm going to go back to the 6Z run because we can go all the way through next week. All right, there's that system leaving Southern California on Saturday. This is Sunday. Beautiful throughout the area. Really, really nice. But without a pressure gradient, we might have some fog. This is Tuesday, so yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing. Nice and dry. Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, also looks nice. Here comes a weakening system our way on Friday, and then Friday night, maybe a little bit of rain and snow. This is Saturday. Now, again, we're kind of getting out into fantasy land, but I wanted to show you that just because, if this is true on Saturday, we could have chain controls again, but backing up through Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, no issues. And as you can see, even traveling north, you don't really have any issues. Okay, that's for California. Let's take a look, because some people will be, traveling. So let's take a look at the whole country and how next week is going to evolve. I'll back up to the weekend. All right, so this is Saturday across the country. Looks nice. I don't see any travel issues. Airport should be okay. What about Sunday? Sunday, this system coming up, I doubt that would be enough to cause any delays going through Dallas. Denver also looks like it will be fine. This is Monday. I think some have been talking about a chance of some severe weather here. That could be true east of Dallas, between Dallas and Houston. This is Tuesday. Chicago O'Hare still looks pretty good. We have to keep an eye on this cold air dropping down. This is Wednesday. Nice little storm going through New England on Wednesday. Maybe a baby nor'easter. Some mostly rain, however, for New England. But look at the rest of the country. And, this is a busy travel day. Look at the major hubs. Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, Minneapolis, Denver, Phoenix. All of them look fine, at least at this point. Thanksgiving Day. Look at that. Thanksgiving Day. Maybe some lake effect snow, maybe some light snow in northern New England. Cold, certainly, but dry, except for Florida. Thanksgiving Day, yeah, really nice. What about getting into Black Friday? Nice. Yeah, like I said, cold through the Great Lakes, but no issues. And then we get into the following weekend, and then we might see more activity. But this is all the way to Tuesday of next week. So yeah, and it's funny. Some people do like to put out, the scary headlines and get clicks and all that sort of thing. But, right now, if that GFS is true going through all of next week, then I don't see any major travel issues through the major airport hubs, and I don't see any travel issues through California. We'll have to keep an eye on that Friday night, Saturday thing, but that's still in the range of Fantasyland. We'll see what happens with that. But if you do see some, scary headlines about Thanksgiving travel across the country, right now, I think people are just trying to generate some clicks. I've seen a couple of things out there, people trying to generate some interest, but right now, I don't see it. We'll see how it plays out. In the meantime, that's everything I have for you on this Wednesday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.